Welcome back. Season 2, Episode 4, Ecuador Insider Podcast. This is like take 3 of the intro. I screwed the first 2 up. Joined as always by Carl Marsan, Ryan Pemberton. We are the podcast face of Abundant Living Ecuador. Sitting here in Vilcabamba. I feel like we've had a lot of cloudy days when we've been recording this show. It's kind of mixed right now, but we're actually in a beautiful subdivision. It's like a 20-lot subdivision here in Vilcabamba. We're 4 minutes from town. You can hear the quiet, a little bit of nature, a little bit of birds. There's a river right there. We set up here just to sort of highlight this project. It's really sort of an ideal place to live, in my opinion, if you're looking to live in Vilcabamba. So that's where we're sitting right now. And today's show is basically a bonanza on relocating to Ecuador. So we're going to cover a lot of different topics, probably none of them in too great detail just for time constraint reasons. But we want to run you through tips and tricks, do's and don'ts on moving to Ecuador and get you guys, as up to speed as we can on that topic. So to start, it's worth mentioning Ecuador is a very easy country to immigrate to. It's one of the easiest countries in the world to get a visa, resident visa, I should say. And we're going to cover, there's a million other visas as well, but we're going to cover today a little bit on your resident visa options. We'll cover, traveling here, housing, and all kinds of other things. So that's why we're here today, guys. Thanks again for joining us. Welcome back. And let's get right into it. So there's 4 visa options. There's others, but there's 4 principal visa options that everybody uses in order to gain residency here in Ecuador. Those 4 are your professional visa that literally just requires a college diploma or higher. And there are, again, I'm not going to run through all the details of every single requirement of each visa. There's slight changes and slight additions to some of these requirements. But
I was going to say, for example, my wife and I got a professional visa, and her college was not on the list of approved colleges, so you had to take one extra step and get that approved by the government, which of course is a waiting process, and it was a little bit technical, but finally the college was approved, and then we could take our next step in getting the professional visa.
Yeah, no, exactly. And some of the visas require small proof of income requirements, but there's 100 ways around that, so there's not even a reason to talk about it in too great detail. But right. So you have the professional visa, college diploma or higher, you're in. You've got the rentier visa, which is you just need to show income. So if you have more than $800 a month in rental income, in any sort of income, but a lot of people use rental properties to show the lease as their proof of income. That gets you the rentier visa. Then you've got the retiree or the pensioner visa, same deal, $800 a month or higher, and you qualify. Your pension qualifies you. And then the last is
the investor's visa.
Investor visa, thank you. Actually, probably the most common, or certainly one of the most common. It's up to right around $40,000 a year now. It goes up with the minimum wage every year. Right around $40,000 a year now. Either starting a business, owning a bank CD that's then held on deposit with the central bank in Ecuador, or buying real estate, something that we've helped a lot of clients do here. Quick caveat on that, your real estate, even though the minimum is around $40,000, you can declare the sales price at $40,000 even on a cheaper property, and that does qualify you for the investor visa. A little known trick, but also somewhat widely used and fairly commonplace as well.
Perhaps if you came down here and you knew you were, if you're pregnant and you had your child in Ecuador, then that would also make you eligible for what is it called, just a baby visa? Or
Yeah, that's what actually my wife and I did. It's called Visa de Amparo. The idea is that the child is born in the Ecuadorian territory and they get Ecuadorian citizenship. So you have to get the child's Ecuadorian citizenship in order for the parents to be eligible to have the permanent visa, residency visa.
Yeah, and there's also, marriage is another way. If you're married to an Ecuadorian, you can get your residency and ultimately citizenship that way as well. Citizenship is another option as well. You're 3 years away from citizenship, once you get your residency. So, So if you do want to get the Ecuadorian passport and have a second passport, you can do that. It takes 3 years. You can apply 3 years post having your residency. Go ahead.
Well, you have to do a test, from what I understand, which is all in Spanish. So in order to get citizenship, you would have to learn at least, well, you have to learn Spanish, really. There's a history test and, different questions about Ecuadorian history and things like that.
Yeah, you'd have to study and prepare for that, but it's available to you after 3 years. The other thing is that there's travel restrictions to be aware of on the visas. So if in year 1, you can only be out of the country 3 months, year 2 also 3 months, then it goes up to 6 months, year 3. If I'm not mistaken, 6 months, year 4, and then you're free to travel after that. The only caveat to that, and I believe that this is still on the books, is the investor visa allows for freer travel. You can travel on the investor visa without having those same restrictions. Okay, so that's the visas. What do you guys want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about finding housing, rentals? What do you guys feel?
One last thing about the visa that I think is worth pointing out is that in order to make the process a lot easier and quicker, you gather all the documents necessary for the visa application before you come to Ecuador. Otherwise, it has to be done, overseas. I mean, in your country of origin, and it takes time. Things have to be apostille and sent. Whereas if you get all the documentation together before your trip to Ecuador, makes it a lot easier. I think it's an important tip.
100%. That's a great point. And also another trick that a lot of people don't realize is that you can actually also apply for the visa through the Ecuadorian embassy or consulate that's closest to you. So a lot of people think you have to come to Ecuador and apply here. That's a fine way to do it. We have good people we can recommend to you to use for that service. But you can also go directly to the embassy, and it's an online process. You have to submit forms and so on and so forth. But you can get your visa directly through the consulate or the embassy and actually arrive with your visa in hand. That's a good option for people as well, especially if you have an embassy or a consulate close to you.
Cool. So what about, I get a lot of people asking, like, how do we get to southern Ecuador? What's the best route? So, you're going to fly into either Quito or Guayaquil. If it's Quito you're flying into, that's the easiest. You can just take an hour flight south on, what do you call it?
Aero Regional.
Yeah, Aero Regional, for those who just aren't into Spanish quite yet. And the tickets are $80 one way. Fly into Loja, and then there'll be taxis waiting outside. Hop in one of those taxis. It's a taxi truck, so it has enough room for all of your luggage, and take you to, I would say, either Loja or Vilcabamba. Come see us in Vilcabamba. It's beautiful, and that's an hour 15 minutes from the Loja airport. If you find cheaper airfare and you want to fly into Guayaquil, that's fine. It's about 8 hours from Guayaquil to get to Vilcabamba. You would have to take 2 shuttle vans. One's going to be, I would recommend Upper Osway from Guayaquil to Cuenca. And then in Cuenca, if you want to come straight to Vilcabamba, I would do, I think it's, well, you can do Ishkailuma. They leave at like 1 or 1:30. If for whatever reason that doesn't work, you could do, what is it called? Equo Van Tour. They're right across the street from Elite Tours. Elite Tours can take you to Loja, but if you want to come straight to Vilcabamba, the Equo Van Tour is going to take you straight to Vilcabamba for an extra $4, I think. So it's definitely worth doing that. But yeah, that's basically how you'd get here. It's very straightforward, not complicated. You follow those instructions and find your way.
And just real quick, that Guayaquil to Loja flight may increase again in the future. They used to have 2 flights a day, Guayaquil to Loja. I don't know, a year or 2 ago, they basically stopped that service, and now there's only like 1 or 2 flights a week, Guayaquil to Loja, whereas Quito is still twice a day. But that may change in the future. It may get easier again to fly in from Guayaquil.
Yeah, we heard that there was another airline that was going to try to compete against Aero Regional, and that still has yet to manifest. But we'll see if that happens. That would be really good for the country.
Yeah. And for those who don't want to sit, if you're flying into Guayaquil and you don't want to sit for 8 hours in a shuttle, you could fly into Quito and then fly from Quito to Catamayo for an extra flight. I mean, it will save you some time for sure, and then you get to visit the beautiful city of Quito.
Yeah, or just fly into Quito and skip Guayaquil altogether.
All right,
Either way,
so
cool.
guys, I'm planning my trip. I want to move to Ecuador. I've got my visa sorted out. What's next? Am I looking for housing before I arrive? Would you recommend that I get housing once I get here? How would you guys handle that?
Sure. What I tell everybody is come down and stay in one of the hostels, hotels. Find a nice resort. I recommend Madre Tierra Resort and Spa. They do 3-night minimum stays now, but you can stay there on monthly basis as well. They have a bunch of little cabanas, beautiful grounds, kitchen for food. And then from there you can look around, get used to the city, and start looking for rental properties. Right now the market's super saturated with people looking for places to rent, and so the availability is limited for sure. And when they do come up, any good rental is going to go straight away. But I know there are people who are looking to build homes just to rent out here, so I would say in the near future we should probably have an increase in properties being rented, because it's a profitable business to find a place to rent. So
Yeah, Vilcabamba is definitely expanding. You see a lot of apartment buildings being built around town. Those will be the easiest rental to find, is apartments in town. Some people don't want to live, in the populated areas. So the houses in the outskirts definitely very scarce at this time. A lot of the Lojanos and Ecuadorians have summer homes here, vacational homes, but they live in them right now because of COVID and being able to work online. More and more people are moving to the country. The rental market is very, very scarce right now.
yeah.
You cracked me up when you said summer homes. That's such a back home thing. Like here it's I guess vacation home, but I mean it's perfect phrase. But I just got me thinking of winter and summer homes. Yeah, absolutely. The market. This is the tightest the rental market has been in the 8 years that I've been here by far. It was a little tight when I got here in 2013. And then was anything was available for a number of years, and now it's very tight again. And I think that relates to the market as well, and sales. The real estate market in general is also, there's just more demand, both for rentals and for purchases, and the market is changing that way. But yeah, I agree. I'm sure the market will adjust as we go here, and more options will come online. Yes, no, I agree. Come down, rent a place. Set yourself up, explore, see where you want to be. Those are great. That's great advice. And then from there, what are the other things you need to be thinking about? So one important decision for a lot of people is, do you ship your household items or things that you're buying as well into Ecuador in a shipping container, or do you just lug all your stuff down in suitcases type of thing? Ecuador has a one-time tax exemption for people who are moving here, who have the residency visa. People who are moving here, or you can ship all your stuff down without paying the import taxes. Ecuador does have fairly steep import taxes on a lot of things. So even though life here is very inexpensive, buying things that are produced in other countries is very expensive in general. It's getting cheaper and cheaper as some of the trade deals continue to take effect, but it's still fairly expensive. So, my advice over the years to people on that has basically been, if you're bringing high value stuff, now of course if you're bringing sentimental items and you just need to bring them, that's that's fine. But if you're just from a financial standpoint, as far as whether it makes sense or not, if you're bringing $30,000 or more in value, I think it starts to make sense. If you're kind of under that number, if you're $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 worth of stuff, it's going to cost you around 10 grand to get the container here. So, and then again, how much taxes are you going to spend replacing that stuff? Again, if you're talking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of personal items, and I think it starts to make a lot of sense. So if you've got a workshop full of tools that you need to bring down, or you've got high-end home goods that you want to bring with you, starts to make sense. Just kind of at least from a financial standpoint, just bringing stuff because that's worth 10 grand, 20 grand. I think financially probably you could do better just replacing it here.
Yeah, there are other options for lower price. I think there's ways to share container space, shipping container space. I heard something online about between 2,000 and 10,000 depending on how much space you're using. So there is the option of getting less, for less money.
I mean, so we brought a container down, and we shared space. It was one of the more tedious things I've done in my life. So what they do is they make you have to have everything right in boxes, or basically everything needs to be labeled. So you need to have like a sticker on every single box and every single item, in like an individual item, like a lamp or whatever it might be. And then you have to have everything on an Excel spreadsheet, and then they check it, right? So when the shipping container gets to the port, they take everything out. So you can pack it in there however you want, however makes sense to you. But then when it gets to the port, they're going to take everything out, and then they're going to repack it however they want. So for us, heavy items were on top of light, fragile items, and then it comes across the country on all these questionable roads, potholes, and thankfully not everything was completely thrashed and ruined, but there was definitely some damaged goods. So that's one thing to take note of, is that you can't control how those items come in the port from the shipping container, and then after they repack it, how that's going to look, and you can't go in there and control their pack. And so it is something to note that and I will say, Jesse, you had mentioned something about $30,000 mark and whether it makes sense. For us, we brought a bunch of things that would end up saving us money in the long run. Detergents, shampoos. If you like natural products and all that, you're gonna find it difficult to find those things here. So we brought down like 50 bottles of shampoo and 8 things of detergent, just because we knew we would end up using it, and like, why not? Because the stuff here is harsh.
Yeah. I would say one thing I heard about is if you're bringing in like appliances, fridges and laundry machines and stuff, a lot of times they don't have these particular models here. So if it breaks, the parts won't be available. So for those, like, I would say home appliances, I would just buy them here. That would be my tip.
You can't have duplicate items of things. So if it's more than like 2 or 3 items of one thing, they're going to think that you're bringing them in to sell. And even if they're used, like we know a guy who brought in 8 fans. He needed the fans for like cooling a greenhouse or whatever he was going to use them for. And they were like old, crappy, used fans. And they charged him like $1,000. I don't know. It was something crazy.
Wow.
Just for these fans.
Yeah, I mean,
and taxes.
I mean, the stuff obviously comes in on the coast. The coast is a little bit different culture when it comes to corruption. And I would argue that aduana, like the, what is that in English? Customs, I guess, is probably the most corrupt branch of government in Ecuador, at least in my experience. And yeah, so like it's a pain. It's really a hassle to bring your stuff here in a shipping container because of all the ridiculous rules that Ryan was mentioning, which includes putting an approximate value on each item and detailing it, like the color and the weight, and
I don't know about the color.
Well, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Pink? Is this pink or? No, it's more of
Fuchsia.
a salmon. It's a salmon. They charge you $50. It's definitely not pink.
Yeah.
But yeah, you end up in those kinds of quagmires where like your stuff gets held up for some stupid reason that they've come up with, and they're wanting lots of money, and you're getting charged per day that it's there, and
Ours
so
got
you
held up.
Yeah,
Ours got held up
It's a
for
common
something
story.
stupid. It was really stupid. I think it was something that they changed the rules in the government.
Which is constant.
Like as it came in, it was one rule, and then they changed all the rules, and then they didn't know what to do or how to like proceed. So they had taken all of our stuff out. I think they probably had to pack it and then take it out and then repack it again. It's probably why all of our stuff was.
Wow.
And like this is not an uncommon story. Like I haven't had a client who like brought a shipping container and at the end of the day was like, yeah, it was smooth, it was easy, it just came right to my door, like no problem.
Right.
And this includes hiring like very reputable shipping companies and having someone there advocating on your behalf. It's a pain. It's a hassle.
That being said, we can definitely refer you to somebody. We have contacts. So this is definitely something that you can do. But just, set your expectations much lower than everything's going to show up, undamaged, perfect, and the logistics will be a breeze. It's probably not the case.
I mean, like, I don't want to like crap all over Ecuador here. Like, I love this place, but one of the reasons that we got out of the relocation services business was just because the government here is constantly making changes all the time, and they may or may not make those changes widely known. So you just end up in these situations all the time where you're trying to do something that you think you know how to do, but they've made some obscure rule change which may have sort of changed everything in a certain way, and may or may not have announced that rule change, and you're just kind of in this situation where it's like, no, but this is the thing, and they're like, not anymore, you know. And so that shipping certainly falls into that category.
Definitely.
Good.
Well, I was gonna say the majority of people that I know would just fill up, you know, as many suitcases as they can afford and bring all their stuff down on the plane, you know, when they come down. Like, that's for smaller items, of course.
Yeah, and that works. And you can also, you can make a couple of trips if you need to. You know, maybe you go back in 6 months to visit the family. You bring another 6 or 8 suitcases. You know, it can be done that way for sure. A question I get here a lot, I'm sure you guys do too, is I need to make money. You know, I'm not retired. I'm not wealthy. I'm coming to Ecuador to live. I need to make money. Any thoughts for people in that category? I know you've got some entrepreneurial experience here.
Yeah, I would say when I speak to people about Ecuador, I would say that would be the first thing I would say about the biggest downside. It is harder to make money here. If you're comparing to the Western world, you know, you can find a job and make, you know, relatively good money compared to what you can make in Ecuador. So of course, we don't want to work with Ecuadorian wages. So you have to be a little, you know, imaginative and think outside the box to find ways to make money. But yeah, when I came down here, I had some savings. Eventually, I ran out, and I was like, what do I do? So I started doing a little small business where we made energy bars and chocolate balls and different like organic, raw vegan / food items. And I did all sorts of things. I made hummus, I made sauerkraut, but mostly the energy bars and the chocolate balls was the most popular things. And yeah, me and my wife, we lived on that, you know, we made enough money to live here for like the first 4 years we lived down here. And
that business was mostly targeted towards foreign buyers.
For sure. Mostly foreign buyers. We would sell in the organic market on the weekends, and you know, it worked out really well. Actually, it was nice. I was working, you know, 2-3 days a week. The rest of the time, I had a lot of free time, and we were able to live on that wage. Of course, it was not a lot, but it was enough to be able to live, you know, comfortably here. And there are a lot of people who do these kinds of things. You know, you just think about something that's not available here, and there's a market for it, especially with foreigners. And the more Vilcabamba continues to grow, the more there will be these opportunities.
Yeah, I think if you fill in the gaps, like if you come here and you are crafty, you can definitely make the things that we don't have here. As I'm spacing it right now off the top of my head, but there are things where I wish that, you know, some artisans or something would make these things and have them available.
Nice organic toothpaste.
Organic toothpaste, I think, is available, right? Like,
no,
you know,
it is.
some bentonite clay or, you know, activated charcoal type toothpaste. I'm sure I haven't tried it because we bring that down in suitcases when we go
your
to the
shipping
States.
container took care of that.
Yeah, we got 150 bottles of natural toothpaste. But no, I mean,
I'm jealous about that.
Yeah, right. No, that's awesome. So, yeah, fill in the gaps. There's definitely produce as well. You can sell it, the organic markets, and just come down and, you know, like, why is there no snow snap peas? They're delicious and no one's growing them. So I grew some in my garden for myself, and I'm like, they definitely grow here. Why is there no snow snap peas? Give me a break. So let's fill in the gaps, sell it, and then compete against other people, right? Like, it's good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Well, just something that came to mind, like teaching English. One thing working online actually. For those who can work online, definitely here is a great place for that. Digital nomads. A lot of people get an English teaching job on the internet, and they can live here comfortably. Other types of online jobs, of course, web design, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I think both of you guys hit the points perfectly. I think to sum them up for me, it's, as Carl mentioned, the labor market here is crap. Like, you don't want to come here and work. Like you're not gonna make a good living. I mean, a typical job here is like $400 to $800 a month, and 400 is most of the time. An $800 a month job here is like a really good job. Now, not to say that you can't live on that here, you can, but it'd be a little tight. So the labor market here is not great. Labor is cheap, but the entrepreneurial opportunities are at the polar and the total opposite of that spectrum, in my opinion. So when people ask me, like, how do I make money down there, I say, the people are always saying, like, can I get a job in such and so? Can I get a job in such as, maybe if you speak the language and you're in maybe one of the larger cities and you have the right skills, you might be able to come and get a job, sure. But really, that's not how you want to be thinking about it. You want to be thinking about it is what kind of entrepreneurial opportunities are there? Where can I invest my money to turn it into, lots more money as the years go by? And what are the business opportunities? Because, and this goes back to something I've probably talked about a lot over the years, but this culture is just not an entrepreneurial culture. It's just not. It's not that there aren't entrepreneurs, but it is not an entrepreneurial culture. And that means that there's enormous amount of opportunities. Yeah, I mean, the opportunities are just, they're staggering to me. Like, I'm so blown away by how many businesses I could start if I had the time and the energy and the interest, that would all be profitable, and you'd have very little to no competition in any of them. These guys mentioned like Carl started that natural foods business, and we were joking around about toothpaste. But things like that actually work. I mean, there are absolutely things here that are just harder to get, and all you have to do is import them and sell them, and you'd have a nice business. Yeah. There's all kinds of items. You were talking about different agricultural products. I think that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's all the specialty, like, produce items you can't really get here, most of them. Like regular, what we would call spinach. Like, they have spinach here, it's very common, but like it's not what the spinach we're used to. If somebody was producing that, they do have it at Supermaxi, but if someone was producing that locally, people would be buying it up hand over fist. You mentioned snow peas. There's a million things like that. There's not a decent dry cleaner in the entire city of Loja. Like, there's a bunch of dry cleaners, but they're terrible, every single one. There's no bowling alley in Loja. I mean, there's just a million things that you can. We just got nice.
We're gonna be squinting here. That's just the way it is.
So that's really like the dichotomy: is like lousy labor market, lots of opportunities for either businesses and or capital. Like, if you could come in with 20-30 grand, go into the Orient, start buy up little pieces of land, subdivide them, sell off the pieces, and boom, 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 go right from there. So there's a lot of opportunities here. But yeah, the labor market is lousy for sure.
I did want to say real quick that Popeye would love the spinach here. I mean, it is so hearty and has so much bite to it. I don't know how to explain it, but Popeye would love it. Yeah. It's like that.
You have to cook it.
Right. It's much hardier. Yeah.
It's interesting. I would say, like, I would say personally, I think the culture, it's not that they're not entrepreneurial, it's that they only know what they know. So they do do business. There's different, they try to think of ways to make money for sure, but they're very limited in their knowledge of, like, how to make money. So we come here with a lot of different ideas. Like, they don't think outside the box. They might be entrepreneurial as, like, renting a piece of land and putting cows on it and making a profit on that, right? Or renting a piece of land and growing maracuyas or bananas or coffee.
Renting a spot in town and then having a plastic store.
Yeah.
And then the plastic store goes up next to it, and then there's one across the street, and then you go and everybody goes to the plastic street,
right,
where everything there's plastic, and then around the corner it's seamstresses, and then there's 5 different seamstress shops.
Yeah, same thing with cars. Like, people buy and sell cars all the time here. Like, that's a business, and a lot of people are getting into it. And if you put something online for sale, and everyone wants to buy it, so they can resell it for more if it's a good price. So I would say they are kind of entrepreneurial in that way. Mm-hmm. But we have all sorts of ideas, like, that they don't have. They never thought about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's talk a little bit about families. Mm-hmm. You're moving to Ecuador with wife and kids, or if you're a woman with husband and kids, or maybe you're single and you just kids, whatever it is. But if you're coming down with family, husbands, wives, kids, etc., you probably have questions. You want to know, are there schools? Can I homeschool? what are the different options? Is there schools in English? I used to get that question a lot.
Is it safe?
Safety, sure. So that, in fact, we should cover that whole topic. But what do you guys think? You've got 2 kids. Ryan's got his first on the way. I have 2 as well, with a third on the way. So we have some experience. Obviously, a lot of our friends have kids as well.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Talk a little bit about families in Ecuador.
We've considered different schooling options for our son. He's 7 years old now. There's an alternative school called Calandria. I would say it's pretty good, for an alternative school here in Vilcabamba. Yeah. The public system, we kind of we decided not to go that route because for many reasons, but it is definitely available and it's free education. But personally, we chose homeschooling. So, we have an online program from Canada and our son studies on the computer, and that's what we chose to do. But there's definitely schooling options for sure. And there are some English schools in Loja.
Some English schools in Loja, yeah.
For like private schools,
Are there? Which is
there's one English school, I don't know the name, but
not a Mauta you're talking about.
David Jones' kids would go to this English school.
Yeah, that's where my kids went. It's there's a little bit of English goes on there, but there isn't that I'm aware of. There isn't like a school that's actually the curriculum's taught in English.
Okay.
I know they do have that in Guayaquil and Quito. I think Cuenca as well, but I don't believe there's one in this area, at least that I know.
Right. One thing to note is that the schools here, if you put your kid in one of the local schools, Spanish school, whatever, the government comes around and vaccinates the children, and if your child is there and is not told what to do, they will just vaccinate your child, and they come around pretty regularly, if you will, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So that is one concern that the community has taken up, and a lot of people don't like that aspect of taking the risk of their children just being, immunized for whatever reason the government wants to, and so there's that. Take note.
Yeah, and just that's an issue that, without wading into politics or personal beliefs here, that was an issue that was concerning to me. And when I didn't speak Spanish the first couple of years and I was trying to figure those things out, it was really concerning to me because you don't really know what's going on.
Right.
And but I found out over time it's not quite that simple. It's true, they do go to the schools and offer vaccines, but they send the kids home with a permission slip that has to be filled out. If it's not filled out, they call you. So it's not, it's not something like I mean, I used to tell my daughter, like, if they come, just run away.
Run.
But I don't care what they do, just run, call me and just run. And but we never had to do that.
Do I run or do I call first? Just run and call while you're running. Run.
Right.
Yeah.
So but yes, they do the vaccinating through the schools, and so you do need to let the school know you don't want it if that's a thing. Good.
I was gonna say, in this day and age, also with the pandemic, with the COVID story, kids don't actually even go to school still in Ecuador. They just study online now, and the Ecuadorian government is promoting like everyone having internet connections, so students can study online. So in a way, like, I don't know when children will be going back to school. I don't know if they ever will. Anyways, sorry. So
that's right. They're still
our son
closed,
studies online, and everybody else studies online at this point. So it's and I think, like, in Canada, where I'm from, we have pretty good online schooling. Same thing in the U.S. Probably better than the Ecuadorian public system, I would say.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, going back to the options, right? So you've got public and private and homeschooling. Technically, I believe that homeschooling is not legal in Ecuador. That's my understanding. But it's very wide. It's common. So it's not something that, if it is illegal, it's not something that's being enforced, certainly. Lots and lots of people homeschool here. But yeah, public schools, I would argue, are not all that different in level to the States, but the better ones in the States would be much better than most of them here. So there's maybe less of a bandwidth, maybe less, not as wide a difference between the best public schools and the worst public schools in Ecuador than there are in the States. And I would argue it's probably somewhere middle of the pack here. It's probably somewhere middle of the pack in the States for what the schools are here. Not fantastic, I don't think, by any stretch. Neither, of course, are most public schools in the States fantastic.
Right.
Some of them I think in the States are great. I don't think we have those here public. And then the private school options I think are pretty good. I mean, we researched multiple private school options in Loja. My daughter ultimately went to she also went to Calandria for a short period, but she ended up in 2 different private schools in Loja. I think we were paying about $160 a month for the private school. That's worth mentioning. I mean, in New York, in Brooklyn, I was paying 10 years ago. We were paying like $1,200 a month before we got here. So that went down to about $160 a month, and we were happy with the schools. It's definitely it's a different culture. Like in general, the kids are different. Like it's not. Everybody's much more like relaxed and reserved. Kids are friendly. You don't have. I guess it could be cliquey in a certain way, but you don't have that same degree of of just sort of like I haven't found a bully. I don't think there's any bullies here, at least in this area. There is some differences there. And then, again, the homeschooling option. Right now, my daughter does what your kids are doing, does an online program. And
I wanted to say, we've mentioned La Calandria. So that school is a bit more, I would say, free spirit. Kind of, let the kids kind of express themselves how they'd like, and a bit more interactive. So if you want to come down and start a school here, I think you would probably do all right. If you wanted it to be a bit more like, studious, something mimic from the States here for elementary, junior high, and high school, I think you would actually find that you'd do all right, because there are a grip of kids that are growing up right now in Vilcabamba. I don't know how many. There's,
Lots of schools.
Well over 100 gringo kids. Way more. So a couple hundreds of gringo kids that need a place, probably, I'm sure the parents are homeschooling them, but I know there are some who are overwhelmed with the homeschooling and would love a place where they felt safe, and that the child could actually learn a good, curriculum similar to the States and that kind of implementation. So,
yeah, for us, since we're doing online homeschooling at home, we do go to a lot of activities because, of course, children need to socialize. I mean, they can't just be on the computer all day. They have to see other children. So what our son goes to right now, he has karate class once a week. There's a lady from Venezuela who teaches karate, and it's a nice group of kids. I mean, they're all learning self-defense and stuff, so it's pretty cool. Then there's an art class with one of our common friend who's an artist who teaches a nice art class once a week as well, where they learn to draw and paint and things like that. Soli used to do basketball. There's a professional basketball player who lives here, who used to play pro in Europe, I believe. He was teaching basketball to children. They had to stop because the municipality are not letting us use the Coliseum, but it should pick up again, so that's good for him as well. There's varieties of swimming pools, to go do swimming lessons or to go learn to swim.
We have an ex-pro tennis player here that also will teach you how to play tennis.
Right.
you guys used to do those bike rides. I mean, we
do that. We do that every weekend. Yeah.
There's a lot of good activities, and that's just Vilcabamba, which is a tiny town. If you go to Loja, there's everything. I mean, my daughter was over the years. She's been in ballet. She's been in different types of dance, different types of art classes. She's done gymnastics. She's done, everything. Basketball, soccer, of course. They have everything in Loja. So if you're looking for kids' activities, even in Vilcabamba, I didn't realize Kirsten does one or two of those, but I didn't realize there were so many options. In Loja, that there's also, there's everything. Cool. Well, I'm getting scorched here. It's pretty nice though. It's nice that the sun poked out here. What else? What you guys have like biggest regrets? Is there anything that you would do totally differently? I know I'm probably I'm putting you guys on the spot here, but anything that comes to mind that's just like, man, I wish I had done that differently.
I have something in mind actually. I wish I had bought property and built a house as soon as possible rather than renting all these years.
Paying rent all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's a simple thing, but if I calculate how much I've paid in rent, I'd be well off. I mean, I'd have a nice place.
Come down, buy a property.
No, it's really
save yourself money on rent.
It's actually a really valid point though. I mean, so I came down, immediately started looking for land, bought land, but rent here is so cheap. you can get very comfortable renting.
Yeah.
And I've also done that calculation and realized, wow, did I have it adds up.
Yeah.
Even if you're only spending $300 to $800 a month,
Right.
on rent, it adds up. I mean, absolutely. No, I agree. And that's the other part. We're kind of in the market. We're in a time in the market here where it would also behoove people to do that sooner than later as well. What about you? Any major regrets?
I don't have anything that comes to mind, no. This has been a pretty smooth ride here, I'd say, so far in Ecuador. Working on 3.5 years here, but yeah, everything's good.
Yeah, I mean, my, if I had to give people just random sort of tips or advice, try to learn the language if you can. Make an effort to figure out the culture. That's really, I think, crucial, actually, to enjoying your life here. The culture is different. I come from the Northeast U.S. I grew up in Vermont, spent most of my life in New York City. Even those cultures are pretty different from one another. But certainly the culture in New York, it's very fast-paced. It's very loud. It's okay to be demonstrative in your words or your actions. Nobody has any problem with that. In Ecuador, it's sort of the opposite to that. It's like you can't get upset, you can't yell at people, you can't get all like, rah, rah, that's sort of considered disrespectful or a sign of disrespect. And I think one of the biggest ways that foreigners get themselves in trouble here, and when I say trouble, I just mean that they don't end up liking it, is because they don't understand the culture and they upset people, either by like shouting at them, or even worse, shouting at them in English, or in another language. You just have to understand that it is a different culture in general. And we've talked about this on other episodes. The culture here is fantastic, but it has its quirks. Take the time to learn them. That's the biggest tip. The biggest overall cultural tip is don't get visibly frustrated or upset. That's just a big no-no here. It's considered like personal disrespect, and back home it's not. So
yeah, no, it's a good tip for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Well, having good relationship with your neighbors, no matter where you live, you know, you want to get to know your neighbors, even if you don't speak the language. Like you just make an effort, you say hi, you smile at them, and there's a sense of, people are very friendly, warm, loving. Like if your neighbors like you, they're gonna hook you up, they're gonna bring you some fruits. Safety reasons, you want to have good relationship with your neighbors. And I think that I have seen people doing the opposite, having bad relationship with their neighbors, and then they end up in trouble.
Totally.
They can.
No, that's huge. I would almost argue, is there like something that would be more aligned with your success here than like making friends with everyone? Like it's almost almost the biggest piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And learning Spanish, like, it's extremely important.
At least the basics. At least the basics. There's a few good courses where you can put different sentences together very easily, and you don't need to take 2-year course to learn Spanish to get by.
To be fair, you don't have to learn Spanish. Like there are plenty of people in Vilcabamba who don't speak Spanish.
Right.
But it is definitely better if you do.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like you totally don't have to learn Spanish to live here. You do have to understand the culture a bit more so than the language, but you don't necessarily need to learn Spanish. But if you do learn Spanish, it just opens up your world, and it reduces frustration, because it's like when you don't understand, the human mind, I think, I've seen this in a lot of people, I've seen it in myself, the human mind, especially with a culture it doesn't understand, it has the tendency to think the person is like screwing you. When there's just a miscommunication or there's just a cultural difference. And if you can't like verbally sort that out, you're gonna like end up frustrated a lot. Right. So it's just good for mental health reasons. But yes, absolutely not necessary, especially in the places where expats live, which certainly this is one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've watched Ryan, like Ryan's still working on his Spanish, but I've watched Ryan interact with people in Spanish, and you've got that like basic understanding, and that totally allows him, like I've witnessed, it totally allows him to communicate and to get the things done he needs to get done, and I think that's a good piece of advice. Like at least
might
get
not
that.
be pretty, but get it done.
Right. Weather. I don't know that we need to talk about weather. We've covered that on other shows. There's rainy season and dry season really is the only thing to think about. It's just nicer this time of year during rainy season.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Well, for me, one of my regrets is not bringing in rain boots my size, because I can't find rain boots here, and you need to have waterproof shoes for rainy season.
Yeah, if you're oversized 10, then you might need to consider bringing your own boots and shoes down here.
Yeah, it does get muddy in certain areas for sure. And what?
Great.
Good. Well, all right. We covered what we covered. Leave us in the comments other stuff you'd like us to cover. Give us a thumbs up if this didn't suck too badly. Share if you feel the urge. And
hit that bell if you want to be notified when all of our future podcasts and videos come out.
Excellent. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 4.
Season 2, episode
Have a
4.
great day, guys.
See you guys.